So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tariq. I'm privileged to be up here on stage with guys that I call my friends, but are also doing some fantastic stuff in the ecosystem. I'll let them introduce themselves before I start the panel, and we'll start immediately from my left-hand side.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Tariq. It's a privilege to be here. My name is Ahmed Ali Alouan. I'm Deputy CEO of Hub 71. Very excited to be here sitting alongside my peers to discuss a very interesting topic today.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you to Hub 71 for hosting this panel. My name is Nader Al-Bastaki. I'm the Acting Chief of Strategy at the Dubai Future Foundation.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with my colleagues in the ecosystem today. My name is Abdulrazak Al-Sharif. I'm the head of programs at Shira, the Sharjah Entrepreneurship Center.
So when I was asked to moderate the panel, I took the opportunity because it's been a very interesting experience over the past, I'd say 6 to 8 weeks, with everything that's happened with SVB, with all of the turmoil that's hit the ecosystem, especially on the venture capital side, whether it be fundraising or valuations of companies. And we've seen this global move looking for new capital. And it's been quite fascinating in terms of the period and what that actually means for founders, businesses, and the local ecosystems that are trying to develop those particular domains, whether it be the entire entrepreneurship ecosystem, whether it be just venture capital, or whether it be specific sectors within that. And so I've made the transition over from government to quasi-government to now back into the private sector. And it's been fascinating for me to see the marriage, if I may refer to it as that, between government policy, initiatives, incentives, and what it is that the ecosystem is looking for, whether it's being homegrown or whether it's moving in from out of town. And with that, I'd like to jump into this panel immediately and kind of say, what are you guys seeing in the market? Maybe we'll start with Ahmed. What are you seeing in the market in terms of the disruption that's been caused by SVB, but the attractiveness of our ecosystem and companies balancing those things?
Love that you're starting with that, Doctor, because the SVB situation has been quite interesting. Us having the privilege of talking with a number of startups and investors, I like to always ask the question out of curiosity, how did the SVB dynamic impact your business? In this region, and I'm talking about companies that have set up and have been operational here for a while, the answer was predominantly had little impact. Obviously, there's a macro impact that could eventually trickle down to the companies, but that situation specifically, their businesses were relatively insulated. It's a reflection of the economy we have and how we also run certain regulations or certain frameworks that allows and supports these businesses. For investors, obviously, it would be mixed because some of the companies, some of the investors would have capital tied up, related to that situation. But there's also an opportunity there, right? The entire correction that's happening throughout the past year or so, I'd say, presents an opportunity to investors. I know that's a theme you're also very close to, Doctor.
I'd like to piggyback off of what you said there and maybe just add a couple of observations as well. As number one, it's been an amazing learning curve for us. I mean, to see the gap that was filled by SVB, but we didn't see directly in the ecosystem. And the minute that they left, we realized how much of a footprint they actually had. It opened up two areas of, interest and learning, I guess, on the government perspective. Is number one, there's a gap in the ecosystem that needs to be filled. And the fact that someone so far away without a physical footprint on the ground over here was plugging in that hole was an eye-opener and something that we really had to look into a little bit more on the government perspective to see what we can do with it, with the ecosystem here and really plug into those holes that SVB was plugging in and how local players can play a bigger role in that. The second part about it is what happens beyond that as well is the fact that SVB was an ecosystem itself. They didn't just provide basic banking operations. They did beyond that. They did advisory work, M&A work. They opened opportunity on buy and sell sides. Where is that gap going to be filled in? So I think it's raising a lot of questions and looking and making us think about what are the solutions to this. And it's amazing. I mean, it's a really getting us to scratch our heads and finding solutions. So it's nice to have this challenge.
And if I may add, I'll take the founder's perspective here. I think what it added to at least the local ecosystem here in terms of perspective is shown us as well, as mentioned, that the entrepreneurs themselves are very agile and flexible in terms of adapting. I've seen them even with the now sort of the conservatism when it comes to funding because of what's happening and what happened with SVB. We're seeing creative ways to overcome that. May it be instead of investing from one bigger ticket size, trying to go for smaller ticket sizes through many investors just to get that cash flow in. But I think it's all, and as mentioned earlier, it has shown us that with that fall and the sizable fall, the small effect that it had on the UAE landscape is actually a testament on how well structured it is, but also how agile our founders are in overcoming these obstacles.
Sorry, I think that was me. Interesting point. All right, I'm going to try this again. I'm going to sit away from the speaker, maybe. So, all three of you are involved in essentially ecosystem building, right? You represent the various government initiatives that are being deployed across the UAE. You're helping the ecosystem develop across multiple sectors. What is some advice that you make? Fix the speakers. What is some advice that you might have for some of the founders as it relates to bridging the gap between the attractiveness of our market? Maybe it just might be the speaker. Let me stand here. So bridging the gap between the attractiveness of our market, right, and actually accessing the market, right, being able to develop. So the government programs are fantastic. The initiatives are great. The environment that we've built here in the UAE is, safest country in the world, so on and so forth. How do they then convert that into actual business opportunities in the market, right? How do you help dispel the notion that if you set up, you will be successful, right? And move it more towards, if you set up, we can help you be successful, but the initiative is on you. How do you work with that? Maybe I'll start with you, Abdelrazak, since you brought that up.
Sure. So, I mean, maybe starting, and we were talking about it earlier, having that notion that you're going to bring something that is working somewhere else and have it sort of run smoothly here is a misconception. And I think this is where collectively and across the landscape and the ecosystem, we have those government-funded initiatives and programs and mentorship and support to really help the founders and the startups, what we call localize the offering or build it from scratch to match what the market needs. So I think this is where a lot of what we do, at least personally and at Shira, is to really support those businesses in understanding how to succeed locally. And it's not necessarily only having those meetings set up, it's understanding how to even speak the language, how to talk to those decision makers, how decisions are being made internally, because then that's, that will define the success of the business and the growth of it. So summarizing that, it's understanding that the solution itself or the product needs to be localized to the local needs, and also understand that if you're building it from the ground up, it has to have the understanding of this is what it's serving because there's an understanding of the local ecosystem.
So just building on that, Nader, maybe if you may, between you and Ahmed, coachability and talent, right? So there is that education component to our market, right? Understanding the nuances. The UAE is very different to Saudi, it's very different to Kuwait, Bahrain, so on and so forth. How do you help bridge that, right? So there is an attractiveness here for talent to move to the region. How do you help educate them on the way forward? Is it really about coachability of founders? Is it about growth? Is it about accessing markets? Your insights would be helpful.
Absolutely, and I think what you're touching on there, and just to pick up off what you were saying there earlier, Abdelrazak, is a lot of it is stepwise, stage-wise as well. I mean, early on, you really want to find the right fit, go to the market with a solution that they're really looking for a solution for, addressing a problem that the market has. But over time, I think there's a couple of things that really needs to come across and is very important is at different stages you need different mindsets, and that's what we try to coach quite a bit. And the openness to change. You might have a brilliant CEO today for an early stage startup. That CEO is an amazing builder, for example. Is that the right person to then take you into growth stage, take you into different markets, open up those markets, open up dialogue, the complexities of those different markets? I think one part of it is being ready for that being open to, as you rightly alluded to, that the build-up, the feedback, the constructive feedback that comes from the ecosystems that we've built across the board. But the other part of it is the sort of the evolution of sort of what do ecosystems mean. A lot of founders, over time, looked for one thing from ecosystems, then another. It all started with capital, but capital isn't enough on its own. Network isn't enough on its own, but it's beyond that. The right skill sets at the right time, developing it, and that's what these ecosystems are really there to do. It's holding you at those points in your development and your product lifecycle to make sure that you're equipped to go to that next stage, basically.
I'd like to build here on two important themes, which is one, and when we position what we do as ecosystem enablers, is that we don't say we're going to help you specifically. We say we give you the opportunity to help yourself. Because a big part of what you do is the mentality of like, this is my company, I'm not going to hold your hand or try to kind of show you how it's business done. Because trust me, if I could do it, I would do it myself. And it's a very important for you to capture these opportunities, because we're going to do our bit. We're going to open those doors. We're going to get you to talk to the right regulators, to the right ecosystem initiatives, to the right corporate investors. But what you do from there is completely up to you. That's critical for us to take the entrepreneurship mindset to the next level. And there's a second point that I think is going to take a bit of time for us within the ecosystem, at least some of the startups, a lot of the startups we interact with, is the whole mindset around failure. We talk about it, you probably see Instagram posts, don't be afraid to fail, and so forth. But that's actually how critical it is to be like, you know what, I am getting into this, and failure is part of my success, and it's a huge lesson to learn. And it's actually from our interactions with some of our peers in the Israeli ecosystem, it's something I picked up, and I realized how true it is. The fact that if they go talk to a company or a fund or start a business and they don't do well, just their attitude, it's not they don't take it as a negative self-reflection. It's like, I'm not good enough, etc. No, they take it as like, actually, I tried hard. I tried to build something, and it didn't work out, but I'm going to take these learnings to the next level. Makes all the difference.
Can I say something? Fail fast.
Yeah, exactly. So what do you think of this statement, right? I'm going to make a statement, and then you guys can debate me if you want to, or debate each other. But when I speak to a lot of founders, they always talk about their success being linked to how disruptive they were, or how much their technology replaced the incumbents. So the statement is, our region is ready for constructive founders rather than disruptive founders. Thoughts, views? Abdulrazak, if you want to start. Ahmed.
Yes and no. The constructive is definitely there, because one good thing about the UAE, and again, I think we can all be proud of, is a lot of the infrastructure and the policies are already, innovative by nature, from the decision makers, from the leaders. And so that leaves then room to further sort of complement it with technology and solutions. So this is where this part is definitely key there. And I think the disruption component is always needed, but not necessarily the only way to succeed here. We're seeing it with new and those future technologies, AI being one of them. Then yeah, sure, there's room for that, but not necessarily it's the only way to succeed here. And I think this is where it does make a difference in terms of your success is not only the solution itself, but how the execution. And I think we've seen it. It's again going back to coachability, the team, and who's behind it. But it's a middle ground here. Definitely a balance between both is my opinion here. What do you guys think?
I agree to that, and maybe also alluding to part of the framing of the question was also around some thoughts I had around the readiness of corporates, but then on the other side, the appetite of capital allocators. There's clearly a movement into enterprise and supporting optimization tools and solutions that cater to problem statements that enterprises are facing. So with capital allocators going to this space, you'd expect that these solutions would really support the upside of these entities in the next 5 or potentially 10 years. So there's a movement, but there are two sides to this, obviously. There's an opportunity there. That's why the capital allocators are going. That's why there are a lot of solutions there. But at the same time, that appetite needs to be on the other side. And I think part of our role as well as ecosystem providers isn't just the awareness and the support on the startup side. It's also really awareness building on the ecosystem perspective to really incorporate some of these optimization tools, solutions into their frameworks. I know across the board, governments are allocating pools that directly go into small enterprises and really supporting them on a grassroots perspective, but this needs to go across the board with the corporate sector as well.
And for me, in the debate between disruptive and constructive, I'd say it's a bit too early for us to expect to see a proper business that disrupts technology as a whole out of this region. There are great talent, great founders, great entrepreneurs with aspiring ideas. What the success stories we've seen are of those that were able to localize businesses properly to this environment. Those are scaled. A common example is Careem, the way they were able to localize the entire ride-hailing business, ultimately getting acquired by Uber. These are the type of situation, it's innovation, don't get me wrong, it's innovation, it's innovating in business models that will get you the right type of rewards and scale and get the attention of behemoths in the world. And we are ripe and ready to do more of that. The entire disruption journey is not only, it's not contingent on one company. It's contingent on an entire system that supports you from the education stage up to having a mature exit market. These are all at different stages within this area. We want to see a lot more exits. We want to see a lot more VC capital being deployed here. And we want to see a lot more graduates within entrepreneurship. All of these are rising trends that we have. If you look at any of the metrics, in terms of growth, they're high. In terms of levels and benchmark compared to the world, still very low. So that's the trend that we're probably going to see.
So as a final statement, right, innovation never stops. It just looks different depending on the environment that we're in. So in closing this, I'll offer each of you, a minute to kind of give us your views. And you have optionality here, either your expectations for what you see happening over the next 2 to 5 years, or advice to founders in terms of how they navigate the market. So it's up to you as to which one you want to answer, but you've got a minute each to do it.
Happy to jump in. One thing I'll say is that there's a lot of opportunity, and we touched on this a little bit when we were chatting earlier, is generative AI is a great tool and toolkit to use. Your cost of developing solutions does not need teams of 10, 20 when they now need teams of 10%, 20% of that size. You can really optimize to build solutions. You can really optimize to create runway and really build up solutions that are fixing up not just today's problems, but tomorrow's in a much more agile and optimized way. So take advantage of what you have around you.
From my side, I think it's more of an advice. You've heard what we do, and I think there's a lot more that we can spend days talk about what government initiatives exist and what Emirates and cities are working to support founders across the maturity journey. So I think my recommendation is, especially if you're building a startup in the UAE or looking to relocate your startup into the UAE, is to reach out and look at all the different initiatives that exist in all across the Emirates and the UAE. Because we're all, and us three, I'm speaking on behalf of my colleagues here, we're all happy to support, we're all mandated to support this ecosystem. So take advantage of it. This is my advice to you, and we're here to actually support you navigate it, give you the right sort of coaching and mentorship and door opening and connections that you require. But remember that we all exist as entities and as initiatives to support you as founders and startups.
I think it's something that ties in a lot of what both of you said, Nader and Abdulrazak. It's the journey of a founder is very lonely. We know that a number of you here, the hustle you have to make, just even like little things like, and I see a couple of faces I recognize here that just kind of jump in and just, hustle, for lack of a better word that comes to mind. Wanted to make sure that they have the chance to showcase their business. So it is a lonely journey. The value of a community around entrepreneurship and technology cannot be understated. What we love about working in this ecosystem is seeing how these communities form. It's an addictive environment, venture capital and technology. Just because people have the same grind, they might be working in different businesses. And what we have done inadvertently, I'd say, through different initiatives across the UAE, is we built around a community around tech that understands that, like, we want to grow our businesses out of the UAE, and not only will we leverage, the initiatives that exist and that you see represented here on this panel, we also leverage the other founders' expertise in that journey. And to see that community form is beautiful. It's familiar faces that get to interact, and that's fundamental to growing the technology sector as a whole and human beings. Ultimately, that's what we all are.
So thank you all for listening. Just in closing, I'll say that the UAE at a federal level, as well as at the local levels, has done as much as they can do and are looking to do more to help de-risk your adventure from idea to, scale. And so look at the opportunities, try to understand the market, but ask questions and understand that we are right at the beginning of moving into that knowledge-based, innovation-based economy, and we need your help. So if you're talented, you're ambitious, you understand how to pivot, we'll help you do that. So thank you very much.